At 8:30 p.m. on September 7, 1940, the night sky over London erupted in fire and thunder. The German Luftwaffe had launched a relentless bombing campaign known as the Blitz, targeting Britain's capital with a fury that would last for 57 terrifying nights. But what most people don't realize is this: amid the bombs and destruction, millions of Londoners found refuge not in bunkers or basements, but miles underground inside the city's very own subway system. These dark tunnels, originally built for commuters, became an underground city of hope and survival. Imagine this: thousands of people squeezed together on cold, damp platforms, children clinging to their parents, the elderly silently enduring the fear and noise above. This wasn't just shelter. It was a new way of life forced upon the civilians. The echoes of bombs overhead, the flicker of gas lamps, and the quiet murmur of whispered prayers filled the air. People slept on benches, shared meager meals, and waited, day after day, for the all-clear siren. The tube stations were transformed into temporary homes, a lifeline beneath the chaos. The question remains: how did ordinary citizens endure such hardship and danger? What sacrifices were made in these dark underground corridors? This story peels back the layers of history to reveal the remarkable truth of Britain's underground resilience during one of the darkest chapters of World War II. The Blitz was a pivotal moment in World War II, where the survival of Britain itself seemed to hang in the balance. After the fall of France in 1940, Britain stood alone against the Axis powers. Hitler's strategy was clear: bomb British cities into submission, destroy morale, and forced the government to surrender. London, as the heart of the British Empire, was the primary target. With the Luftwaffe unleashing waves of bombers night after night, it became obvious that traditional air raid shelters were not enough. Underground stations, originally designed for trains and commuters, offered a solution. Though not intended for human habitation, these tunnels were sturdy, deep, and widespread across the city. In a desperate move, the government allowed and even encouraged civilians to take shelter there. The transformation of the tube stations was rapid and extraordinary. Platforms were lined with bunks, blankets were handed out, and improvised medical stations were set up. The familiar train tunnels echoed with the sounds of families trying to find comfort amid fear. Blackouts outside made the underground even darker and colder, but it was safer than facing the open air above. Not everyone welcomed this change easily. Initially, authorities worried about hygiene, crowd control, and maintaining order underground. Some commuters resisted giving up their stations, fearing loss of service and damage to the rail system. Yet, as the bombings intensified, the numbers swelled. On some nights, over 175,000 Londoners sought refuge underground. This phenomenon was not limited to London alone. Other UK cities like Liverpool, Glasgow, and Newcastle also opened their underground shelters. Each city faced its own challenges but shared the same grim reality. The war was not just fought on battlefields, but in the daily struggle of civilians trying to survive. Technology and weaponry played a grim role in shaping these experiences. The introduction of incendiary bombs, high explosives, and firestorms made the air raids more devastating than ever. Yet, the tube's robust construction, originally intended to withstand the weight of the city above, shielded its inhabitants from the worst. The tunnels became a frontline defense in a new kind of war-worn, where survival depended on endurance, community, and hope. The underground living experience also highlighted social contrasts and unity. People from all classes, backgrounds, and professions were forced together. Stories emerged of shared kindness, resilience, and even humor in the face of constant danger. The tube was not just a shelter, it became a symbol of British spirit and determination. But this underground life was far from comfortable. Overcrowding, lack of sanitation, and psychological strain tested even the strongest. Some never left the tunnels, trapped by bombs or fear. Others faced tragic losses as the raids destroyed homes and families above. As we step into the main story, these tunnels will reveal countless tales of heroism, struggle, and survival stories rarely told, but etched into the fabric of history. The night air was thick with smoke and the distant roar of exploding bombs. At 9:15 p.m. on October 5, 1940, another wave of German bombers swept over London. Inside the labyrinth of the London Underground, thousands huddled together, hearts pounding, waiting for the inevitable sound of destruction. Life underground had become a new reality. As the bombs fell relentlessly above, the tube stations were buzzing with quiet urgency and tension. Mothers rocked their children, whispering soothing words. Men exchanged grim glances. Strangers shared what little food they had. The stations had evolved into makeshift communities, places where humanity clung desperately to normalcy. The government, recognizing the vital role of these shelters, dispatched volunteers and officials to maintain order and provide aid. Air raid precautions, AirP wardens patrolled the platforms, ensuring safety and calm. Medical teams set up triage areas near stairwells, ready to treat injuries from above-ground blasts. But it wasn't only the threat from the skies that challenged these underground refuges. The tube tunnels, originally built for trains, posed their own dangers. Flooding, poor ventilation, and structural damage from nearby bomb impacts put residents at risk. On several occasions, bombs penetrated deep enough to cause partial collapses. In one haunting incident, a bomb hit the bank station, sealing off a group of people for hours before rescuers could reach them. Amid these hardships, stories of heroism and resilience emerged. One station worker, Tom Harris, risked his life multiple times to rescue trapped passengers after a direct hit on Holborn Station. His efforts saved dozens, but he himself was wounded and never fully recovered. His courage became legendary among shelter inhabitants, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Children, the most vulnerable, adapted in remarkable ways. Schools were set up in the tunnels during the day to provide education and a sense of normalcy. Teachers used gas lamps and scavenged books, teaching lessons while bombs shook the city above. These underground classrooms were a testament to the indomitable spirit of a generation growing up in war. Technology also played a dual role. While bombs rained down relentlessly, engineers worked tirelessly to keep the tube functioning both as a transport system and a shelter. Emergency lighting was installed. Water pumps kept tunnels from flooding, and ventilation systems were improved to combat the stale, damp air. The iconic blackouts above ground meant that inside the tunnels, even the smallest light was precious. However, the psychological toll was immense. Night after night of confined living, separated from the sun and fresh air, led to what doctors called shelter fatigue. Some residents suffered anxiety, depression, and exhaustion. Yet, even in these grim conditions, small moments of joy and community flourished. Musicians played makeshift concerts. People shared stories and laughter. Friendships formed in the underground holes that would last a lifetime. Despite these acts of resilience, the losses were heartbreaking. Families lost homes, loved ones, and livelihoods. Entire neighborhoods were flattened. The shelters offered protection from bombs but could not shield people from grief. Each morning brought news of destruction, and yet the people returned to the tunnels that night, determined to survive. The climax of this underground saga came during the heaviest phase of the Blitz in late 1940 and early 1941. On one harrowing night, a particularly fierce bombing raid targeted multiple tube stations simultaneously. The chaos was unprecedented. Rescue teams worked around the clock to clear debris and tend to the wounded. The city held its breath as the death toll mounted, but it was in the aftermath that the true victory of the underground shelters became clear. Despite the devastation above, Londoners remained unbroken. The tube stations, scarred but standing, continued to protect thousands. The collective endurance of these civilians sent a message far beyond Britain's shores. A nation under siege would not be defeated by terror. Let's leave the... As the relentless nights wore on, the London Underground transformed from a simple commuter network into a fortress of survival. The turning point came when the Luftwaffe shifted tactics, increasing the intensity of bombings to crush civilian morale. Yet, the very communities that formed in the tunnels became the backbone of resistance. One notable story involved a group of civilians trapped in the Aldwych station. After a near-direct hit collapsed the entrance stairwell. For over 48 hours, rescue teams battled through debris and unstable tunnels to reach them. Inside, the trapped survivors rationed food and water, shared stories, and kept each other's spirits alive despite the uncertainty. When rescue finally came, the survivors emerged not just as victims, but as symbols of endurance. Their story was widely reported in newspapers, inspiring hope amid the despair. It was clear that the underground shelters were more than a refuge. They were a testament to the human will to survive. The British government also took note of the power of these shelters in maintaining morale. Propaganda campaigns highlighted the courage of shelter dwellers, emphasizing that survival was a form of defiance against the enemy. The phrase "keep calm and carry on" took on new meaning in the tunnels below the city. However, the lessons went beyond engineering. The experience highlighted the importance of community support and mental health during prolonged crises. Shelter committees formed to organize activities, provide assistance, and ensure no one faced hardship alone. This social cohesion was vital in sustaining the population through the darkest hours. As the Blitz eventually waned in mid-1941, the underground shelters slowly returned to their original purpose. Trains resumed full service, and the city began to rebuild. Yet, the memories of those nights remained etched in the collective consciousness. Historians later reflected that the success of the tube shelters was not just a matter of bricks and mortars, but of human spirit. The people who lived through the Blitz Underground showed that even in the face of relentless destruction, hope, courage, and solidarity could prevail. The story of London's underground air raid shelters is a profound testament to the resilience of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Beneath the surface of a city, battered by relentless bombs, thousands found a fragile sanctuary where fear mingled with hope and despair was met with courage. Living underground was no easy escape. It demanded sacrifices, comfort, sunlight, privacy, all surrendered to survive. Yet, it forged a powerful community spirit. In those dark tunnels, strangers became neighbors, and neighbors became family. They shared not only space but their strength, their stories, and their determination to endure. The underground shelters shaped more than survival, they shaped identity. The people of London did not simply hide from war, they resisted it with every breath, every shared meal, every whispered prayer. Their courage echoed far beyond the tunnels, inspiring a nation to stand firm against seemingly overwhelming odds. Looking back, it's clear that these shelters were more than physical refuges. They were symbols of defiance, resilience, and unity in the face of terror. They remind us that even in the darkest times, humanity's spirit can shine through. But this story is not just about the past. It carries lessons for today about the strength found in community, the power of hope, and the importance of protecting civilians in times of conflict. History shows us that survival is never just about shelter. It's about people standing together when the world falls apart. I've just said what's recorded in history. You should find out the real truth yourself. We have written the sources from which we got this story in the description of this video. And we have always been and will be supporters of the oppressed, regardless of their color, race, or country. This world and its creator are also with the oppressed. If you found this story powerful, like and comment your thoughts below. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from World War II that reveal untold truths and honor those who endured. See you in the next WW2 story.